actually, it's a question that was sent to us. Actually, this is a question that many people send to us. They want to know, how can we tell if the information that we're getting from specific websites or from specific channelers or specific news sites or whatnot, how can we tell if it's the real deal? Is it disinformation? In today's what we call the information age, I mean, we can get information on anything, anytime, anywhere. And with so much propaganda out there, so many people trying to make a buck, so many people putting out fear porn, how do we sift through the muck to uncover the real truth? And I think that's a really good question, and I want to thank the person who sent it in. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now. But, and again, this is a question I get repeatedly, so it's probably several of you that sent this in. But some people ask me, like, well, what are my news sources? What is, what are the websites that I follow to get information? What are some of the speakers or the theorists or the consciousness folks that I get my information from? And, quite honestly, when I'm doing a post or I'm doing a show, or if I'm literally integrating information into my reality, for lack of a better term, like, let's say I hear a good example was that Malaysian plane flying over the Ukraine or whatever, and it was they were showing it all over Fox News and CNN and whatnot, and immediately I was like, my gut was, there's something strange going on here. And so I decided I was going to let that particular story go. I was like, you know what, I'll never get to the truth of the situation. I'm going to let that one go. So my answer to everybody basically is that I really just follow my intuition. I follow my gut. What do I use for discernment is my gut. There is no one particular website or no one particular news source that I use, but I can share the ones that I won't go to with you. But let me ask Terry. Terry, you're basically doing the same thing I'm doing with radio shows and whatnot. And we have a lot of guests that come on, and quite honestly, there are some guests that I listen to, and I'm like, I'm never having them back on again because that was just horrible. But you're around the whole consciousness movement, the activist movement, and you too probably get inundated with a ton of information. I know you and I talk about it as well. Like, what do you think of this? Is this BS, or is this real? Is this a conspiracy? Is it fear porn? How have you found your method for kind of sifting through the muck and the garbage to get to what the truth is?
Well, Bernard, I'm similar to you. I look at different sources. I work on instinct. Something gets presented in front of you, I take a look at it. I go, this is I'm curious about this. And then I will investigate it more. I Google, I double research. Again, sometimes I'll be watching mainstream television. Something will catch my eye. And, if you look at television, sometimes you can see that they're lying. If you get a clue as to what propaganda looks like, and almost, I'm almost to the point, like, anything that comes out of their lips, like, oh, they must be lying. Now, I don't want to be that tainted on it, but just about. Anytime the president speaks, I'm like, oh no, no. I mean, I'm saying this with a grain of salt because at the same time, I don't want to be so suspect of everything that I don't believe anything. But I compare it. I compare what's on mainstream to what's on alt media, and I just look at different things, and then I just trust my own instincts as to what I feel may be true or not true. And again, sometimes it's like, they say, what do you think about this? Sometimes it's good to look up Snopes.com because some of it isn't quite right. I have had times where I have posted things and then realized that they weren't really quite written exactly accurate, the accurate truth. And then I've done further research beyond that. I mean, just today, now there's something that I did post that I know is true because I have a personal friendship with the person who did it. And what it is it's a guy named Mike Bluehair Smith. He does Film the Police Portland, and he's in Ferguson, Missouri, taking footage of what's going on there. And he did capture an actual cop with a semi-automatic pointed at protesters. It blew my mind.
Lovely.
I posted it on a Facebook page, and I had a troll telling me that it was propaganda. So I really had to argue with them on that because I knew from my own personal experience, knowing this person and their credibility, that I'm pretty sure that that piece of footage is real.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
so, it's also a little bit,
I know exactly what you mean as far as, how do we call it? A knee-jerk reacting posting. We got to be very careful about that. And I know a lot of people do that as well. I remember back in the day when I was just like all gung-ho about everything's got to be perfect, and Facebook has to be perfect, which of course it isn't. I remember like correcting people. It's like, okay, well, I would give people the cross-reference link. And, that's not my job. That's not my job. Being a good journalist is not, making everyone else a good journalist is not my job. My job is for me to be a good journalist. And the reality of it is that, yes, you do need to cross-reference everything. And even Snopes, you know what? I will say something about Snopes. Yeah, they're pretty accurate a lot of the time. But it is a little biased, so be careful. And sometimes it's a little mainstream bias, for lack of a better term. Mainstream bias. They're biased for the mainstream. But yeah, they will give you all the information. They'll give you the links as to how to cross-reference that particular story, and that's a great thing. I myself, I prefer to cross-reference things myself. Yes, I go on Google. As a matter of fact, a great way to cross-reference, which I'm not sure anybody has ever thought about this, is cross-reference with Google using different countries, and that's one of the things that I like to do. I'll do google.uk or google.au or google. What is it, I forget, DK for Denmark, or DE for Germany. You go on the different Googles around the world, and even the different Googles will have different stories. Who'd have thought? It's not one Google. Google.com is basically the Americanized version as well. I don't know how many people realize that, but if you go to other Googles like google.uk, you might get different resources as well, and you can really cross-reference through using different versions of the particular browser that you're using. I don't know if Mozilla does the same thing or whatnot, but it's one of the tricks of the trade that I do is I'll cross-reference not only within Google, I'll cross-reference within different versions of Google to try to get to the truth, so to speak. But initially, it is fair to say that if I read something and something within me is like, well, here's a good example. The whole, back in the day when they did the Boston bombing, and they were showing like, oh, this is actors, and whatnot, and I had to cross-reference that. And quite honestly, when it comes to that story, I'm still up in the air. There's a lot of supporting evidence, but, I remember back when, somebody was trying to say that, one of our friends who happens to be a guest and a member of the G.I.C. was literally like a mafia drug lord. And they were showing pictures that were kind of similar, but it was absolutely not that person. And they do such a good job at perpetuating it. It's like, oh, she's really a mafia drug lord or something. And I'm like, what? That's not her. Give me a break. But boy, I could see where the general public might think that that could be her with a specific thing, or even like a lot of the, the conspiracy folks that try to show like the Illuminati stuff in everything, how everything is the Illuminati, and like, oh, his nose looks like a pyramid, so, he must be Illuminati. Yeah. Or my favorite one is where they had our good friend, and actually, I will say the name, it's Miriam Delicato, who's a good friend of ours, where people were saying that she is a reptilian because of the lighting in a video that we did or something like that. And it was like, are you kidding me? I was there, I would have seen that. Yeah, I don't know what you do with the lighting. Your version, your copy is pretty bad. And that's not, whatever. But you know how these people are always looking for something to create drama. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. And I think that's the point we're both trying to make here is the only way that you're going to find the truth is to use discernment. Take everything with a grain of salt. Do not just jump in and agree because it feeds your worldview of a particular aspect of whether it be politics or consciousness or the Illuminati or UFOs or earthquakes or oh, there's another earthquake. It's a 2.8. It's the end of the world. It's another earthquake. Terry, you live in the earthquake world. What really
Yeah,
matters is an
yeah, I
earthquake?
do.
A 6.0, a 6.5? I mean, does a 4 really matter to
I
you
mean,
guys?
well, that's a bigger. I mean, that's a fairly decent earthquake, 6.0 or 6.5.
I was going to say, exactly.
It
That's
could
a
kick.
big.
Oh,
Oh,
did
we
I
can't
lose
hear you,
reception?
Terry. Oh, here you are.
Okay. Yeah. That's a pretty big earthquake, a 6.5 or 6.0. Although for some reason, I mean, it can devastate where the epicenter is or do a lot of damage. But it's common. It's common to have earthquakes happen. So if it's a 3.5 or a 4.0, not even my cat responds to that. It's like whatever, we can keep sleeping. You just I'm not really particularly afraid of earthquakes here. But
I don't know how.
in using what you're saying about using discernment on what you're viewing, my thought is to whenever you present material to people, sometimes I don't use exactness with it, like, oh, this is the way it is. This is definitely the truth. This is everything that I know. All I can say is this might be interesting to look at and consider it as a possibility. I don't like to be a brand authority on something permanently. And one clue to me is whenever somebody does do that, I become a little bit suspect on the information that they're giving. Not for the fact that they are coming from a malicious intent to give this information, but from the fact that they are so sure about something that perhaps it might be ego-oriented on their part to be that way. So it's really, if you're honest, if you, the person, are honest in search of the truth, and you let people know this is what I think is the truth, or this is what I believe to be the truth, and this is the reason why I find it worthy to take a look at and have a discussion over, is how I like to look at it. And then allow each one of us to come together and draw our conclusions from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. I agree. I agree. I believe that, and again, you set a very good example as to the how should we call it the symptoms to look for lack of a better term. If someone is being like, this is it, there is no other than, they're being absolute, and that means that there is no room for conversation, and that goes to show you that they haven't done their cross-referencing as well. With that being said, let me share with you a little bit of what I don't use. Okay, and I am going to say some websites that are definitely not on my list of truth websites or that I consider disinformation, propaganda, and fear porn. First of all, when it comes to mainstream media, okay, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whatnot, while they might be reporting information, remember, or they are reporting an event, they are reporting it with the bias by which they are getting, who they're getting paid by. We have to remember that. Rachel Maddow is getting paid, $20 million a year from the extreme left. Bill O'Reilly is getting paid, $50 million a year from the extreme right. They might be talking about issues that are of the day. They might be talking about a war. They might be talking about a terror attack. They might be talking about, for something that really happened. But it's going to be skewed through the lens of who's paying them and with what they are aligning with which may not necessarily be the truth. you'll notice that most of these people, and don't get me wrong, I adore Rachel Maddow. I find Bill O'Reilly funny in the sense of, oh my God, is this person a real person? But entertaining in an annoying way, let's put it that way. But I don't look at them as news. They're basically news given out in the form of entertainment. So you have to remember they're working a specific audience. It's like Terry doing a comedy show. You know, she's working the audience. That's her job. You know,
Yeah.
the same thing goes with these news people. They're working a specific audience. They're singing to the choir. They're telling you the story the way you want to hear it. So, you know, God bless you, all my dear friends that are extreme lefties or extreme righties, and you watch Fox and MSNBC. Of course, you're going to hear everything you want to hear, but it's not necessarily an unbiased truth. So be very aware of any mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, BBC, all of them. Remember, they are corporate owned, and these people are getting paid by those corporations. So you're getting basically corporate propaganda. Some of the alternative
Well, it's
news.
information with
Yeah, go on, Terry. Sorry. Go
well, it's
ahead.
information with an opinion. It is a clue. I mean, a lot of times I
Yeah.
think Rachel Maddow has an opinion with information, a viewpoint, and therein lies, I think, the slant of how the story's being told.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I do the same thing. You do the same thing. That's what we do. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
entertainment. You know, I'm not Walter Cronkite. I'm not trying to be Walter Cronkite. You know, neither are you.
yeah.
But um, to go back to, let's talk about websites now. Um, one of the things that I did a couple of years ago, when it was during a board meeting, I believe it was about 2 years ago, I decided, well, I didn't decide, we all agreed that we weren't going to post any articles that have exclamation points or written all in caps, because a lot of these websites, they want to do alarmism. They want you to look at their page, look at their story, whether it's true or not, you know, FEMA camp, FEMA camp, FEMA camp, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And they're really just working on your reaction. They're not working on you from an intellectual standpoint or a standpoint where you can literally discern the information. Already they've got your adrenaline going, and your central nervous system is acting up. Like, you know, well, Alex Jones, hello. God bless him, you know, he's got his own thing going on or whatnot. And yeah, he was a father of the truth movement and whatnot. I give him a lot of credit, but he's still doing the same old formula of yelling and alarmism, and the tanks are rolling down the street, and if you don't do something, your child's going to be taken away from you, and alarm, alarm, alarm. Um, and some of the other ones that I feel very concerned about is before, what is it, Before It's News? Is that the name of the website? Is that right? They're very alarmist. As a matter of fact, they're very tabloid-esque. Even one of our dear friends that used to work with us here admitted, you know, she works as a tabloid. And I'm like, well, that's not news, that's tabloid. You know, it's like, that's a tabloid story, you know? Um, so we have to remember that tabloid is not news. People seem, you know, the younger generation, especially those in their teens and 20s, maybe even their early 30s, you know, you forget, or you didn't live during the era of what was it? The Weekly News, the Inquirer, the Star. You know, I grew up with my mother getting a subscription to the Inquirer. Okay, and I used to read it every week. I
Mine
loved it,
too.
but I knew it was fake. I knew it was fake. It's
I,
like, go ahead,
I
Terry.
wait to go home for Christmas to read all the back issues.
I mean, but I
I
knew it
didn't
was
want to
for
be seen
fun. It was
whining
like,
at the news.
right? Like Elvis had a baby with an alien, you know, and it's like, oh, funny, and
Right.
you read it, it's like, geez, you know, it was like, like reading a comic, you know. But now there are websites out there that people don't realize that they're being satirical. The Onion is a great one, and there are several other ones out there that are like the Onion, but they're not the Onion, and people still think it's really news. What was it recently? There was the story about Sarah Palin doing the ice bucket challenge, and they're like, "Oh, she knocked herself out with the ice bucket." That was satire. That was a joke. That really did not happen. Don't get me wrong. I think it's really funny if she did, but that never really happened. That was from a satirical website. The same thing goes with a lot of these activist websites. They will take those articles and put them out as news. What was the other one that what was that other one? There's several of them out there, but before it's news, oh geez, I can't remember the other one. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of it out there. So be careful. The I would say probably one of the fairest ones that I do rely on would probably be Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Yeah, she's a little lefty, but then again, so am I. But I do find that she's very to the point. She gets down on. I mean, she'll go out to the protests. I mean, I don't know if you all remember when she got arrested and beat up, and a couple of years back. I believe it was at the Democratic Convention or something like. Even the Democrats like beat her up. So it's not a matter of being a lefty or not, but she's usually right there in the heart of it all. Democracy Now! Is awesome. RT leans toward our audience. I love RT, and to me, they kind of lean toward the activist culture, which is great. That's what we are. I'm an activist. We're all activists. The RT tells you the story from the activist perspective. But I will say, it's it's owned by Russia, and it's Russian corporate news. So there's got to be a little skew there. But don't get me wrong. I love watching Lee Camp. I love watching, what's her name? The one that does Break the Set or whatnot. She's fantastic. Abby Martin is fantastic. But again, it's the skewed aspect from the activist perspective. Again, a great idea. Whoever thought of it, we do need activist news. They did a great job. Actually, they were one of the only main corporate news that were at Occupy the whole time. Abby Martin was at Occupy for months. As a matter of fact, most of our live streamers got to meet her and hang out with her. She was a live streamer with them. Vice News, excellent. They're on the ground also. That's Tim Pool, if you remember Tim Pool from the Occupy movement. And Tim has been traveling around the world, going to every major protest on the ground, streaming live. And that, to me, is news. When they're on the ground and they're streaming live, you're seeing it firsthand. It's not there's no story behind it. It's just a video playing, and you get to see it for yourself. Kind of like your friend with the Ferguson situation. Just streaming, taking video. That's it. You don't need to skew the story. It's there. It's real. So, that's my recommendation. My recommendation is follow the live streamers, follow the news people that have been live streamers or are live streaming. Get to know not your audience. Get to know your journalists. Are they accessible? Can you talk to them? Luke Rakowski, another great journalist, fantastic. We Are Change. Yeah, it's a little biased. He's very libertarian, but you take that with a grain of salt. He's a very compassionate libertarian, and he does a great job just reporting it the way it is. But remember, some of these people are just doing it for show. Mark Dice, God bless him, he's great, but he's being, he's kind of like the jester. He's making fun of people. It's like, oh yeah, look at these people. They're signing a petition to start a war with the United States, and these people do it. He's just showing how stupid or ignorant a lot of people can be. Like, oh, will you sign this petition to enforce the police state so you have less rights? And all these people come up and they start signing the petition. But he does portray it as news, and there's no news that people are not very aware of what's going on around them, quite honestly. What do you think, Terry? What's going on with all these people I said and talked about?
Well, some of the people that you're talking about, I'm not really completely familiar with. And then some of them I am. So, I agree with you. I happen to also like Russell Brand's commentary on stuff, although it's comedic. He does take relevant issues and point them out from his viewpoint, which also his perspective is showing a truth behind it, which I agree with often. And I like his energy. I'm less, honestly, some of the comedians that are pundits, can reveal a certain truth as
Yeah,
well. You know,
that's very
and
true.
so I trust the comedians that are out there too with information, but at the same time, they also are either maybe programmed by what's happening. You know, they might be, because some comedians are still stuck in the right-left paradigm, so it's all about
Yeah, yeah.
Republicans and liberals, and that's what the real reason is. Whereas there are others that are, holding crystals
All
and
right.
stuff. So.
Well, I'm gonna say it then. There's a big difference between Bill Maher and Jon Stewart. Yeah, Bill Maher
Yes.
loves his left-right paradigm. He loves his Democrat-Republican argument. Jon Stewart is like, you're both idiots. It's like, he just gets right to the point, you know. So there is a difference there, and
Yes,
as well, like now, and go on.
I'm more inclined to trust Jon Stewart over Bill Maher right at this moment.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
few things that Bill Maher said that I haven't really agreed with. One specifically was about the Bundy Ranch people, and he made a pun that I think was completely full of disinformation.
Yeah. Well, he really does. Again, he's the comedic version of mainstream news. He does. I don't know if you guys remember this a few years, and I know so many people love Bill Maher, all my little lefty friends. And don't get me wrong, I'm a lefty, but I'm not a Democrat lefty. I remember a few years ago he was making fun of the people in the 9/11 truth movement, and he literally got into a cussing match with some 9/11 people in his audience and had them arrested. So I mean, he's like he doesn't even want to hear it. He's like he doesn't want to hear it. He wants to stick to the mainstream script, and he loves that little divisive. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't he like? Is he the one that's best friends with Ann Coulter? I believe so, or they had a little thing or something like that. So you know, whatever.
Oh, I thought that
Now
was
we're gossiping about the
from,
pundits.
there was a rumor about remember Jimmy Walker from Good Times was. Did you see that one with Ann Coulter?
No, no.
Anyway.
Anyway, everybody, we need to wrap it up. We are at the end of the show here, and I hope we give you some food for thought, something to laugh at, and give you something, of course, to think about. But the bottom line is, as much as we kept it light or even got a little bit heavy in certain points, the reality of it is that we all need to use discernment. We all need to make sure that the information that we are aligning with as truth not only aligns with our gut, but it aligns with fact and reality. So, as much as I believe in a lot of metaphysical things that happen, I also study energy, quantum physics, and whatnot. So, we have to have that balance of I don't want to say empirical science, 'cause I don't like that word, but we have to have that balance of reality-based truth. And I'm all for exposing corruption. I'm all for exposing the secret government that murdered JFK and did 9/11. I'm all for that. And I think we're doing a good job, actually. I think we've come a long way. More and more people are realizing that 9/11 probably was, I don't want to say a conspiracy, but they allowed it to happen. But let's keep one foot grounded and keep your head in the air, so to speak. Use discernment. Make sure you cross-examine and cross-check. Don't just believe it because I say it, or Terry says it, or Alex Jones says it, or Bill Maher says it, or Lee Camp says it, or Avi Martin says it. Just take it with a grain of salt. See it, let it sit with you. If something sits a little bit wrong, go seek the answers and start doing some cross-referencing. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Terry, for being here again today. This is the second month in a row you joined us.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy it.
Well, we're really happy to have you here on the G.I.C. team. I love you very much, Terry, and I love you guys very much. Have a wonderful month. We'll see you again at the end of next month. Thank you.
Thank you.